Suppose that we want to do a homework exercise where we need to calculate the chi-square statistic. So I'm going to go into question 2 from this particular homework sample. And in the first part, they're going to sort of describe the study, whether they're looking, in this case, at whether breastfeeding was successful 6 months after childbirth, based on whether the mother received an epidural or not. So we're looking to see if there's independence or dependence between the two variables. Okay, so remember the null hypothesis is that the two variables are independent. There's not a relationship. Whereas under the alternative, we're saying they're not independent, or there's a dependent relationship in this case. Okay, so we can check answer. That's fine. Then it asks for the component of the chi-square for the epidural, no breastfeeding cell. So epidural, yes. Breastfeeding, no. You've got the 191 is what was actually observed. Now what would be expected is 404 times 481 divided by 1,189. Okay, and you can do that calculation. The easiest thing to really do is go into StatCrunch and do the calculation. So I'm going to click the table and open in StatCrunch. Keep in mind at this point that this table already has the totals listed, and you've got to get rid of those because you only want the data. Okay, so you've got to really delete those. Okay, because you can't have those because that's sort of duplicating what the sample was. And you could just leave the last column if you wanted to, but we're not going to need it. So you're going to tell it that the data is in these two columns, and then the first column was the breastfeeding. So I'm just going to say BRFD for that to remind us. And you just have to remember the yes and no go with the epidural. So then go under Stat, okay, and what you want to do is the chi-square contingency table. Okay, and you've got click the wrong thing. Tables, contingency with summary. Okay, so the columns, remember, hold down the shift button and click the yes and no. Okay, and what that corresponds to, see if I can't get it out of the way. Anyway, that's the did they have an epidural or not. The row labels are in this first column, so that's where I called it BRFD. And then you can also add to show the expected counts. And then click compute. And then this is the table that's going to help us with the homework. Okay, so the expected cell count, okay, for the epidural yes, breastfeeding no, is 163.43. Now they wanted you to give it to 3 decimal places, so that's probably not going to be right, so you're probably going to have to pull out your calculator and actually do that. To get the chi-square, I think what they do in the next question is actually tell you it's like 11.82 or whatever, 11.826 or 11.83, and they want you to come up with the p-value. So you could do this as one option. If they said 11.83 with 1 degree of freedom, I wanted you to get the p-value. Another option is to actually use the calculator, okay, for the chi-square. Okay, so instead of going through and letting it do all the calculations, they've done some of them for you and want you to do others. So in this case, you could go in, and remember the chi-square, you're always looking for the area in the right tail of the distribution. So if we change this to 1 degree of freedom, we want this to be greater than or equal to, and then we put in the number they give us, so like 11.83, and click compute. And then the p-value would be that number sitting in the box. And notice it's hard to see, but there's a little bit of red right here in the very right tail of the distribution. And if you round that to 3 decimal places, that would be 0.001. To 4 decimal places would be 0.0006. Okay, the 5 would round the 0 up to a 1, or the 8 would round the 5 up to a 6. in this case. And you could do it either way. On the test, what you're going to have to do is read the output here and know where to find the chi-square test statistic and p-value in the output. I may or may not give you all the expected cell counts. I may leave one blank and ask you to calculate what the number for the expected cell count would be or something. But hopefully this shows you how to do the calculations for the homework. But the easiest thing is just put the table into StatCrunch and let it do all the number calculations for you. The only drawback is you got to be careful not to have a total row or a total column that you include. And then if they ask for more digits in one of the calculations like they did here, you'll have to go back and do that one by hand. But hopefully that helps with the chi-square analysis.